Back in time with February 1982. Again, on the cover here, we see the young 22-year-old Stanley Mitchell, and his family owned a logging company in Georgia, I think. And again, this is where he's a 22-year-old angler. We see a lot of them out there. And he was one of the few young anglers in that actually had good support from his family. His father was really supportive, and his brother actually fished the tournaments some himself in the BASS. So he was, but in the sense he was never going to leave his family business and just go pro completely, like the young ones do nowadays. Again, this is an interesting, again, the size of the crowd. This was at Montgomery, but the size of the crowd, and this blew me away. I couldn't believe people would come watch a weigh-in, that many people. And that's why they started announcing it, and it wasn't a secret anymore, because they wanted the attendance. And this one, I do not believe this one was not in October. Well, it may have been. I don't know. I'll have to verify. But this one, then that's also why they moved it from October to the summer months. And now, of course, they've moved it to the spring months. So it's to try to give, attract the crowds and give them more of an opportunity, especially when they did it in the summer months, to be on vacation and bring their families with them. Again, the river. Just more pictures, more politics, the mayors of Montgomery and the helicopters, and again, all the Ranger boats, identical, side by side. Again, Harold did well in this event. And I was still being, generally very, very, probably by far the most consistent classic fisherman here. I restayed it. Always tough competitor in October. 2 firsts, a second, a third, a fourth in 6 years. And of course, this was 82 and 84. I won again. So no, that was my event. And I knew it was when I started. I said, got to win the classic, because that will make you quicker than anything else you can possibly do. Martin's fame never came. This is where they actually write an article about what I was talking about in one of the earlier back in times, and that is how hard he was trying to win the classic and just still could not, pull it off. And they started, and of course then, it's like all sports. You see it all the time. Well, he's never won a Super Bowl, so how can he be the greatest quarterback, even though his statistics are better than anybody else? Well, Roland was the same way. His statistics at this time was far better than anybody else. And yet they started just saying, but he's never won a classic. He's never won a classic. So, and his son even, his son, Scott, basically said that's what one of his biggest desires was when he got into BASS and qualified for the classics, was to win one for his father. Yeah, where Roland ended up in this one, I don't. This is the classic we've done, but.
That's Lake Montgomery?
Yeah, this is Lake, well, they call it Lake Montgomery. It's actually the Alabama River.
Who's in the top 5?
Stanley Mitchell won, Harold Allen was second, Jack Chancellor was third, I was fourth, and a guy named Ray Meredith was fifth. Gregory Ward was sixth, Paul Ice seventh, Bill Ward. Bill Ward and his father both were in the top 10. Gregory is his son, and they're the Virgil Ward family. King Cook was 12. Still haven't found Roland. Sorry, Roland. Shouldn't be harping on this. I obviously missed you, Roland. I don't know where you're at. I know you're here. Okay, whatever. And this is the 2-H Stanley fish. It's a 7A bomber and a crocodile jigging spoon. Kind of hard to see there. Trying to see if this was the fall event or they moved it. I don't know. Oh, this is a face that, well, he's kind of like Bo Dowden. Renaud Pelletier's from Washington State. He was at the classic dude to being in the Federation out of Washington. And going into the final day of the U.S. Open at Lake Mead, he was leading, had a lead over me by 6 or 7 pounds, which is big. And that's when I ran up the Grand Canyon and caught those 2 5-pounders, and I beat him. But he also had a unique deal, which I've never heard of. I think it was like this was a 4-day event, the U.S. Open was back then. And it was a 5-fish limit, okay? And the second or third morning, he threw out there, and he was throwing a worm, and he felt one, and he hooked it, and he reeled it in, and there's 2. There's one running up and down the line, and he had one hooked on on the worm. And of course, obviously, that first one sucked it in, and it went through his gills, and the other one grabbed it and sucked it out, and he's the one that got hooked. So he had caught 2 on one cast. Now, you hear that all the time with treble hook baits.
Can you keep them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't hear it on a plastic worm.
What if you already have 4 in the live well?
Yeah, if you have 4 in the live well, then you have to call.
You take one and call it, and then
Yeah,
go
you just
take
can't
the
make
other one?
another cast until
Okay.
you call down to your legal limit. Anyway, this is basically an article about the pros' secrets to success, and this is what I said earlier about Pompous. And the article was each angler acting what made him, what he thought good. And but anyway, I guess it would be that I pushed myself to the limit more than anybody else here. And then asked Clunn to compare mental attitude, scientific knowledge to things he's done for. I would put mental attitude over scientific knowledge, he said, because with the right mental attitude, you will use that knowledge to the fullest. And
Obviously, that's what you said.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I've totally committed myself to tournament fishing, which was very true. I love what I'm doing, and I learn all the time. And each one of these anglers explained what they felt was their strength. I always find it interesting to look at articles like this when we say why we think we're doing well, why we're performing at a high level. And you think, of course, a lot of times we're so full of it and we don't know yet, and so we say stupid stuff. But really, I don't see it. I see a little bit, but most of it, it was, would be accurate today. The mental attitude and everything. That's the one thing I see. When I made that statement, I guess it would be that I pushed myself to the limit more than anybody else here. Would not be true anymore. I mean, I've watched these young anglers. There's a lot of them pushing themselves to the limit, and it would be hard to say that they're doing it at a higher level than another handful of them around. This would have been fairly true back then. There was exceptions. But nowadays, there's 25, 30 young anglers that are doing the exact same thing and more. They're spending time on the water ahead of time. They're doing their homework, and their homework is a lot better than it used to be as far as the information. Oh, Bill Dance talks bass behavior. You know, and I've talked about Roland a lot in these because really I probably admired him more. But Bill's the one that kind of inspired me to really do it. One of the key person. And then when he finally retired, I've told this story before, it broke my heart. And I actually went up to him, why are you retiring? And he says, Rick, I can't compete against you guys. And it took me a while to figure that out. But again, you have to go back in time how Bill achieved his success. Bill would spend, and he knew it, and it was legal, he would spend a week on the lake with the best guide before the tournament even started. He would be with the guide 1 or 2 days before the tournament started. So he was spending a lot of time on the lakes, which was hard to beat back then. So that's what he meant when he says, I can't compete against you because the rules changed. You couldn't do that anymore. You couldn't, how much information you were getting was being more and more limited. So, but still, he was, I still have a tremendous amount of admiration. Maybe he wasn't record-wise a Roland Martin, but his image really made our sport. People liked him. He really did spend a lot of his time teaching, technique, and he was just, and he still is a really neat human being to be around. Now, I've read some of these key things he put down, food. Well, we know now more and more that food is the most important thing if you want to find fish. And all these things are some of the key things that he would point out.
Just read just the first word of
migrations, observation, shade. What's the coldest water you've ever caught them in? How does barometric pressure affect fish? Conditions, which is a real general statement, but conditions have constantly changed. Anyway, I just wanted to point this out because we look at all kinds of modern lures. Here's a crankbait that had 1, 2, 3, 4 different positions you could stick the bill in. I ain't never seen that.
I don't understand.
Well, you could change it from a deep diver, a super deep diver, or you could put it down here and it's just deep, or you could pull
the bill didn't
yeah,
move.
the bill moved out and moved down.
The midsection was jointed.
Yes,
and it moved.
that's right. Good. See, I thought you slid it in. Okay, no, you're right. You're right. Yep, you're right. I even looked at that wrong. Well, that concludes our February issue 1982.